Dave Miley, thanks so much for chatting with us again at Parenting Aces.
It's a pleasure. Happy to be here.
It was such a nice surprise to run into you and see you here, but I guess I should have figured you would be here.
Yeah, I just came for the last 4 days of the Open. I've been traveling quite a lot. I've been in 54 countries in the last 3 months, and I've got another few to go before the election. But it's great to be here, and you see a lot of the presidents from the different federations here, and also it's nice to be able to watch some of the juniors, some of the wheelchair matches, and yesterday I had the pleasure to watch the women's final. So it's not too bad.
Nice. So election that you are referring to is the ITF presidential election, which is coming up next month. Can you give us an update on what's going on with that? I know you've been traveling the world for the last several months.
Yeah. Well, the election's on September 27th. For the presidential post, there's 4 candidates. Dave Haggerty, who's the incumbent, Anil Khanna from Asia, Ivo Kaderka, president of the Czech Tennis Federation, and myself, representing Tennis Ireland. So the process is there's 160 countries will be voting. It's a weighted voting, so some of the bigger nations have more votes than some of the smaller nations. And what I've been doing in the last, first of all, for the first 4 months I was in listening mode, meeting federations, player council, different people who are involved in tennis, putting together my manifesto. And the last 3 months I've been traveling to 54 countries, outlining my vision to presidents, meeting face to face, getting them to know me as a person and why I'm doing this. And also, what I think is most important, listening to the presidents. What do they expect from tennis for the future, and what do they expect for the ITF, which is a company with shareholders, and the federation presidents are the shareholders. And I want to deliver service and a return to those people.
Right. And I mean, you and I have talked several times over the past few months since you announced your candidacy, even before that, about why parents of junior players should care about this election. Can you talk a little bit about what your intentions are for junior tennis if you do get elected to the ITF?
It's a good question. What I say to people is, I want to lead a movement. I want to lead a movement of like-minded people who want to change the status quo. So what does that mean for junior players and parents is that it shouldn't be that it costs $60,000 to $70,000 for a junior player to play in the international system. And it shouldn't cost $80,000 for an entry-level professional player to travel without a coach. It's not acceptable. So what I want to do, I want to look at how we can restructure the current junior and entry-level professional circuit, the World Tennis Tour, to make it more user-friendly, because people forget, who are the customers? The customers are the players, the parents, and at other levels it's also the spectators, who are watching tennis. So we need to adapt to them. And so what I've seen with the current World Tennis Tour, the ITF took 3 years. They spent over $1 million putting together a new tour. They told everybody that the previous system wasn't fit for purpose, and now we're back to the old system. It's incredible, and nobody's accountable. Nobody's accountable. So what I want to do, why did they make the mistakes? They didn't involve the people who really know what's going on. That means the coaches on the tour, the players on the tour, and the parents who are traveling and paying for their kids are on the tour. So what I want to do, if I'm president, I'm going to get together real experts who know what's going on out in the field, in the futures, the junior ITF, in the Tennis Europe, in the regional circuits, and let's look to see what we can do better. There's some good things, but let's try and see what should we do where it shouldn't be necessary for a player to quit school, to spend so much money, and we find a system.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm going to do. So I've got a vision for tennis. Well, I've got a platform for tennis driven by tennis ideas. I'm not a politician, but I've been an executive for 30 years, 25 years at the ITF, 17 running the biggest department, and everybody sees me as an executive. But what's interesting now is I resigned from the ITF 3 years ago, and now I'm nominated by my federation, Tennis Ireland, as a political candidate. A federation that's been playing Davis Cup since 1923. And now I'm a political candidate, but I'm a political candidate with 30 years of getting my hands dirty. And I'm reasonably expert in juniors, seniors, wheelchair, technical, anti-doping, many of the areas. And so I think, as president, I can challenge the people below, but also articulate what's good for tennis to the other constituents.
It's interesting being here, being on the grounds, sitting at these courts and listening. I love to eavesdrop on the conversations that the fans are having. One of the things that I've heard multiple times this week is how confusing it is that at every level of the game the rules are different. The scoring's different. Sometimes we play less, sometimes we don't.
Yeah.
Sometimes we use no ads. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes we play a 10-point tiebreaker. Sometimes we play a third set. Can you comment on why the rules are like they are?
Okay, well, it's a good example. I think that the job of the ITF is to look at what's good for tennis. Okay, it's the governing body. That doesn't mean it's there's obviously other constituents, the ATP, WTA, the 4 Grand Slams, the players, and there's a lot of people that are involved in the game. But the ITF should be not just looking at what's good for Davis Cup and Fed Cup and Olympics, but also what's good for the sport, to grow the sport. And the rules of tennis is a good example. Yes, we should be always looking how we can change the rules at the different levels of the game to make it better, but it should be done in an organized fashion. So I want the ATP, the ITF, the tours to be involved, but let's agree the rule changes beforehand. And for me, one of the bigger picture things in world tennis is if we want the game to grow, we need to adapt the sport to the needs and lifestyles. So what are the needs and lifestyles of the spectators? What are the needs and lifestyles of the player at the micro level? So for me, what I think is very good about the rules over the last 10 years is we've changed a lot. You can play no ad scoring, short sets, tiebreak for the third, even time matches are in the rules. So at the micro level, the club level, it should be possible to change the competition and play to make it more user friendly so it suits the lifestyles. People don't want to hang around for a whole week. But at the professional level, at the international level, in my opinion, the juniors, the entry level professional, even the top levels, we should do it in a more coordinated way. So I think that if we're going to do no let, for example, it should be at all the tournaments. Okay, we need a little experiment first to make sure it works, but you can see that the juniors pretty much get used to it quite quickly. Roland Garros has been using a US Open, but Wimbledon not. So we need to look at how we can do it in a more coordinated fashion. And even something like on-court coaching.
That was my next
No,
question.
no.
Yeah.
Well, look, for me, I think we've talked before about it. I think one of the great things about tennis is its unique nature, that it develops life skills. Why does it develop life skills? Because unlike other sports where the coach tells you what to do, once you get on the court, players have to think for themselves. So at the professional level, it can be used as a gimmick or a nice thing. It's quite interesting for spectators. But for me, at the junior level and the entry-level professional, I think it's going to be not good for the sport for so many different reasons. Life skills, once the player gets on the court, they should have to think, figure it out. Sometimes you have match points, you lose. Sometimes you have match points against you and you win. All the things you have to do to figure out how to beat different people. Of course, I know sometimes coaches at the side are giving some advice that they shouldn't be giving, but generally the players have to think for themselves. I don't think it's going to be very good for the coach to be able to, and sometimes the coach will be a parent going on the court. Sometimes you'll have a player with a coach, a player without a coach. It's going to create a lot of imbalances. So for me, I think coaching before the match, the player goes on and plays, you can give coaching after the match, and that for me is much better. And of course, team events, you can have coaching, but I think if we are going to talk about on-court coaching and not on-court coaching, it should be done in a coordinated fashion, everybody agreeing, because it's a major rule change. And I really think that the unique nature of tennis, building life skills, you throw that away.
It's interesting. I had the opportunity to talk to one of our girls singles finalists, and in her semifinal match yesterday, her opponent was taking advantage of the coaching rule at the side changes.
The Chinese player.
To go over and get. You were at the match?
Yes, I saw the end of it.
And the American player, I asked her, you didn't seem to go to your coach very much. What's up with that? And she said, I have been brought up that it's for me to solve the problems when I'm out there.
But isn't that a great thing to say?
It was awesome.
But you know what? Even in everything in life, in parenting as well, our job is to make our kids eventually independent.
Right.
And the same with a good coach. The job of the coach is eventually that the player becomes independent, can think for themselves, and they build self-confidence and belief in themselves, and they don't just blame other people. I've always hated when I see a player playing on the court and they miss a ball and they look at their box and they blame the box and stuff. No, take responsibility.
Yeah.
And so coming back, I think that it's a bigger picture thing, that our sport develops life skills like no other sport. I mean, even if you want to take an example, I use this example quite a bit, that from the point of view being fair, in soccer, it's a great sport, but if I push somebody and the referee doesn't see it, it's not a moral dilemma. Nobody's going to say I'm a terrible person. But actually in tennis you learn that even if you can cheat and nobody sees it, it's wrong.
Yeah.
So it teaches you that you actually, even if nobody sees it, you have to be fair to your opponent, and they're going to be fair to you. That's it, and it's a great thing for life. In theory, yes, exactly. But eventually, in our sport, usually people know the people who are fair and who aren't.
Yeah, that is true.
And that's it.
True.
So,
all right, one last question, and I'll let you go because I know you've got a busy day. But assuming the election goes as we hope it goes in a couple weeks, if parents have concerns about what's happening at the junior level, how their kids can transition from juniors to college to professional or skip college, I hope they don't do that, but are you going to be available, or are there going to be people or resources available to the parents to get information?
look, what I want people to see the ITF as servicing the customers. So the customers are, okay, for me, okay, the main thing is the ITF has shareholders, so we need to deliver for the shareholders. The ITF works for the federations don't work for us, okay? So our job is to deliver return, to grow the industry because we're part of that industry, but also to service the customers. So I said earlier, the players, the coaches, the parents, and the spectators. So I want to feel that the ITF's accessible. We want to have the feedback from the parents. What I hate hearing things like saying, oh, the parents are always problem. No, they're not problem. They care about their kids. That's why they're there. That's why they're watching. Okay, one of the things we have to do better is to educate parents. Because parents sometimes coming from other sports and they have their kids playing tennis, they don't understand the sport, maybe like people who've been in it for a long time. So we need a lot more education, and we need to listen. I always think the problems come when we don't listen. Everybody knows somebody has to take a decision. But what they don't like is when people take a decision without consultation. So let's try and have as much consultation as possible. Now, I remember the ITF with the World Tennis Tour was quite funny because they said, we sent 15,000 questionnaires around. But the problem is, and they did free phone-ins, but do you really think the players in Sharm el-Sheikh or one of the futures are going to do a free phone-in? No, if you want to know what the players do, you need to send from time to time people to where the tournaments are going on and just listen and talk to people and say, what do you think? What can we do better? And stuff like that. Okay, and that's how you learn, and you're a little more accessible. So yes, I want to make sure that we're seen as accessible. And but in the end of the day, the ITF should be taking decisions all the time, thinking about the bigger picture. ITF has to try to grow the industry, and that means we want the ATP to be successful, the WTA. We want all the other constituencies in the professional tennis to be successful. We want the ITF to go from a $200 million company to a $200 million company, so we deliver more return to the shareholders. But we need to make sure the customers are growing, which means adapt the sport to the needs and lifestyles of the customers. That's it.
I love it. Well, Dave Miley, thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. We'll see what happens.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks.